Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Fantasy societies. I'm talking about designing those as I am writing the fantasy setting for the Victory system. And I've talked about law enforcement and roadside structures for them. Technology. Technology is an interesting thing when you get to your fantasy society, because we like fantasy societies to look like the medieval times or the Renaissance or some fanciful combination of the two, maybe with some more colors thrown in. But we like them to work like a feudal society in 2020. We like the thought of, well, there's that feudal government society, barons and counts and dukes, but we also like flush toilets and hot showers and being able to communicate over long distances. You can't really call this stuff anachronistic because we're not talking about a recognizable period of time. We're talking about an idealized conglomeration of elements that we like from history, stitched together with elements that we've created whole cloth so that they fit. We're looking at people who never came up with transistors, but can still talk face to face at long distances. And how do we put this stuff together? Couple of different ways. There's a couple of different things that we can go to. We can go to a side development of technology. And you take something that we abandoned in real life, in actual history, thing that we looked at and said that that's never actually going to work, or we relegated as technology to a small area development and develop more in other areas. Clockwork is kind of a stagnant technology to us because we didn't need clocks to use those springs and gears and whatnot for forever. We found better ways to do it with electric motors and solenoids and digital timepieces. So you don't have the ubiquitous use of watches and pocket watches and whatnot, which means we don't have the proliferation of people learning those skills. And without that proliferation of people learning those skills, you miss out on the advancement that comes from these people getting together and thinking about new and better ways to do things. In fantasy world, we have gnomes. We have the races and societies that have adopted these technologies and developed them in ways that we never did here. You want that super advanced device, well, it probably winds up, it's going to be a mainspring in there someplace, really, really tiny gears that you need to make with really, really tiny hands. But you can have a lot of the things that we expect to happen digitally happening mechanically. You take a technology you want to see and you apply mumble gears and throw on some gears, call it steampunk, you're done. Steampunk's a really, really good way to go about that because you get some of the Victorian influences in there, but you also have better guns, guns at all. Having firearms in your fantasy world, those fit in the right proportions. If you're not using a side technology like an imagining of how steampunk would work, it's a fantasy world. You can always say, oh, it's magic. And that covers so much else. We don't want people to die from simple infection. You get a wound while you're working in the field, it gets infected, well, you're going to die. You're going to develop a fever that's going to run into the 107s, and you are either going to survive it with some severe problems afterwards, or you're going to die. And nah. You can heal the damage. You can cure the infection. You can keep that quality of life up with just the application of a little magic or some healing potions. Or, well, Paul fell off the ladder. Why don't you run in town, get a healing potion at the alchemist, see if maybe see if you can get blessing at the temple while you're on the way back. Make sure it works. Magic. So we can make a world where stuff that we're familiar with happens and stuff way beyond what we're familiar with can happen. Instantaneous transport across continent, one side of the continent to the other by stepping through a portal. And now you are into stuff that is really advanced. If any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, thank you, Arthur C. Clarke, then magic should also be indistinguishable from a sufficiently advanced technology. You have not only better weapons because there's better material science and whatnot, but you've got better weapons because you can enhance them with magic. That's a Dragoon revolver. Look out, because that's free. Oh my god, it's glowing. It's a magical revolver. Run. One of my patrons threw a limiting factor as a filter. Looking at this, thank you again, Jim. That if magic is there and ubiquitous enough to replace the operation of a simple job, you have to explain why that simple job is still there. That magic, if magic answers a problem of that society, then you have to explain why that problem still exists if you're going to use that problem. Not exactly the way he put it, but magic has an economic effect. Magic has a massive economic effect. And how are you going to make sure that your society still functions and people can still make a living, even if you are solving a whole bunch of problems with magic? Magic can be very expensive. That's one solution. Or magic is quite ubiquitous and a lot of these problems have been solved and you write around them. You don't really worry about currying horses and stabling them for your carts anymore because the carts run themselves. A little telekinesis or a steam engine or what have you, and you no longer have to go through the effort of keeping the horse, caring for the horse, carting the horse's waste away, hooking it up to the cart and making sure it's all healthy and operable the entire distance, or wrangling this animal, which might be a little discontent to go places that you want to go. Get in, you make sure the boiler's loaded up, you stoke the furnace and get on your way. Make sure to toot the whistle every so often because you don't want that steam pressure to build up. One of the things I want to avoid, I want to avoid building a monoculture. I don't want everything to work the same way in every place in my world. I want there to be a number of different places, all of whom have come at these problems with different points of view and different eyes and different experiences, so that the way they handle magic and technology in one nation is not the same way that they handle it in another nation. Which means I've got to throw another level of balance in there because, well, these people have something that should make them. These people all know magic. They're way more effective. They know if even their soldiers know a cantrip or two that just makes them more effective soldiers. In victory, if you learn warm and dry, which automatically makes you very comfortable and dry no matter where you're at, that'll make an army march further, won't it? Sodric's lighter for igniting small fires, or clean for immediately becoming perfectly clean and ready to go. Those three. If your army knew those three, you'd increase their effectiveness. You haven't given them something deadlier to work with. You haven't given them better armor, but you've made them more effective, increased their morale, given them ability to withstand the elements for longer, bivouac faster. Yeah, you've that is a difference. And how is this army over here that doesn't have that advantage? How are they dealing? What do they have? Do they have the better technology? Do they have been superior training? Do they all master certain martial art forms, allow them to ignore the elements for? Oh man, that's terrifying, isn't it? That's how they countered a more effective magical army. Is they trained them all in very specific forms of kung fu. Yeah. As an army that learned 3 cantrips, there's a bunch of people in there who learn more advanced spells. You got to know that. And so you're getting lightning bolts and whatnot on the field. So what do these folks over here have? Well, they've got wire fu, and their individual troops can punch through barrels if they have to. And then you got this entire legion of dwarves moving in steam-powered armor that is enhancing their strength and giving them vastly superior protection. Each one's a little stubby tank on legs that's ready to put an axe right through you from across the field. Axe cannons. Ooh, yeah. So, different ways of handling it. And warfare is not the lens I really want to use to look at the difference through, but it's going to happen, and it's a main theme of the game, so it's going to happen. That's the warfare, adventuring, punching, kicking, shooting area of it. What I like to think about, or put more time into, is how is that magic? How is that technology? How is the mix of them, and how it's handled? How does that affect the people at the lowest rung of society? How does that affect the people who are just starting out, trying to make a village happen? Or the person who's just trying to start out in the world, or even the people who are running that roadside stand. They're running a roadside stand. It's a family business, has been for a bunch of years. What does magic do for them? What does the technology allow them to do better than if it didn't exist? How is the life of the folks at the roadside improved by advances in technology and or magic? And that's the question that you ask that in every nation that you want to put together. Every nation's going to have some equivalent to that roadside stand. Some place between places where there are people there who are just there to make sure that as you are passing between places, you have some place to stop and rest and recuperate, grab a meal, and move on. That might be a family-owned business. That might be some government institution that sets these places up, and they're nice and regimented and regulated, and they all have the same supplies. Or you have a place where it's all people who have just decided to go into that business, and they've got to compete with each other for how fanciful and luxurious their accommodations are. And if I just start listing all of these things, I've just described 3 different countries. I've just described the basis of 3 different countries. You know, the folks who use the military mages and the kung fu mages, and then you've got the folks in or the kung fu practitioners, and then you got the folks in the powered armor. And the folks in the powered armor probably have that really regimented, strict governmental system of stops between places, so that there's a regulation and you know that's safe. Every place you go, you can find the same materials. There's a really great system for moving troops through, because you can accommodate them as they move. And the folks who you teach magic to, that's the place that's got the fanciful roadsides. And, well, everyone gets to be a little bit of an individual, because you got to cultivate that magic in the heart. And so you have places between the roadsides that are very fanciful, and they're competing for stuff. Maybe the folks over here, maybe the folks in the place where they're teaching everyone kung fu, slightly more spiritual society. Maybe those roadside places are shrines. not necessarily to a particular god, but a place where you can stop and worship. And those have grown into places where you can stop and worship and rest. Get yourself a meal. Some monks will give you some soup. No matter who you are or where you're from or where you're going, there's always a place to pray, to rest, to eat, and move on. And then that starts to found how that society operates. As you start to come up with all the different ways that you can do this, it's not that you're finding one way that is better than another, although you may. You're finding just all the different ways and seeing if you can make those work. And as you do that, countries rise from the bare ground. People and their attitudes come to occupy them. Yeah, that's a good, that might form the center of the starting map. There's going to be a bunch of maps because there's going to be a bunch of different places. I really want a broadly populated world, but you got to focus on one, at least a starting place for your characters. Some place where in your core book, people show up and, well, you're in one of these areas and this is where adventure happens. GURPS Fantasy introduced a city called Treadroy, which is, or translates to 3 laws. That's on a unique place where the city is planted between, on the corner between 3 countries. And so each country has a piece of it. And so walking across 3 bridges, you can get to 3 countries. And, you can avoid the law in one by going over it, stuff like that. I don't think we're going to go quite that hard on presenting these countries, more like having one that is the focus of where people start out, and these others that are interesting places to go, potential conflict, to keep a little bit of a political pressure going there. There's always people who are trying to nudge one or the other, and probably the reason that war hasn't openly broken out in the area is because the first one to attack someone else is just going to have the other one jump on their back. So the politics are going to be fascinating as they're wheeling and dealing and trying to figure out who's the ally of the other. And as long as there's no clear alliance, there's détente. There is the peace that happens when you're only keeping peace because you don't know how the war is going to go once you start. I kind of like that. So you've got your start in this area, and you got all the different people who could come just from the local area as potential starting characters. And just folks can certainly come from much further away or be part of a different culture. But those 3 cultures, yeah, that's not too much to explore in one book. That's a good start with a lot of suggestions about what the stuff around that is as well. Maybe not as detailed as covering those places, but yeah. I've got a lot of writing to do. Well, thank you very much for following me along in this particular ramble. I like looking at elements of society that lead to entire societies kind of springing up out of them, and I'm getting there. I think I'm just about at that point where stuff is starting to throw itself together in my head, and that's the best point. If you enjoyed this ramble, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy this video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If there's anything else you'd like to hear me talk about, questions you'd like to hear me answer, things you'd like to hear me cover, please leave me a comment down below. I will love getting your comment. You'll love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. I would like you to hit the subscribe button. If you do, you might also want to hit the notification bell so that you're alerted when the video becomes available. If you would like to contribute to the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me up my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps, allows me to make better videos more often. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. I will see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.